Today is our 7th follow-up episode with Eileen Nauman, so be sure to listen back on episodes 252, 256, 265, 267, 268, 269. This will be episode 271, and our final episode will be tomorrow, installment number 8, which is episode 272, and it's all about charging water. Today's episode, though, is about how to use a pendulum. And I just want to mention that Eileen talks about using black tourmaline pendulums, which we now stock in my online shop at www.eugeniekruger.com. Eileen is a worldwide lecturer and pioneer on a broad range of topics, including homeopathy, medical astrology, metaphysics, and shamanism. And you can find the books she's written on all of these topics by visiting Amazon.com and searching for Eileen Nauman. She is also a New York Times best-selling author under the pen name Lindsay McKenna, having written more than 225 novels translated into 33 languages and selling over 23 million copies worldwide. You can learn more about Eileen at www.walkingtheland.net. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to Eileen's newsletter, where she'll be sharing loads of great information in the coming months. Eileen is on a mission to help raise our collective consciousness by teaching all of us some of the healing tools she's learned over many decades. She is doing this free of charge through her YouTube channel, which she is just starting up, so be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/@EileenNauman2329. Eileen has also agreed to make many of her amazing resources available free of charge through my website while she's getting her own site and YouTube channel set up. So you can check out eugeniekruger.com/Eileen to download many of the resources she has gifted. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with your family and friends. We're in a time right now, more than ever, where deep healing is needed, and part of that healing includes learning more about our energy body. So I am very grateful to Eileen for taking so much of her time to share her wisdom with us all. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hi, Eileen. So we're back and we're going to be chatting a little bit more about pendulums. I'll leave the floor to you.
Okay. Thank you, Eugenia. In my work with clairvoyance, most of the time I see things, but there's been times when I've needed to use a pendulum. My mother has always had a pendulum. She taught me how to use pendulums when I was about 8 years old. I got my first one as a birthday gift. And the first thing she did is she took me into the grocery store with my pendulum. And the people there in Ontario, Oregon, where we lived at that time, knew my mother. They always called her weird, but they all loved her because a lot of the people had come to her for healing sessions. And most of them, not all of them, but most of them got better, or some of them even got well. We're talking chronic illnesses. We're not talking colds and flu. So anyway, she says, come on with me. We're going to go to the grocery store. I remember what my mom was going to do at the grocery store. She pulls her pendulum out. Okay. And this is pendulum. It's not my working pendulum, but it gives you an idea of what a pendulum looks like. This one's really excited. It wants to start moving right now. Yeah, you're ready to go to work. Stop. Quit. Anyway, she would pull her pendulum out of her little pouch that she had. And if she needed apples, she would go over to where the apples were at in the grocery store, and she would be holding her pendulum over every one of them. But she'd be there long enough to see if the pendulum was going to say yes. And she would tell the pendulum, tell me which one is the one that I should have, or I need 6 of them, or whatever. Okay. Point out 6 good apples. And so she would be there, and people would go by and look at her like, whoa, what are you doing? And some of them really got involved because they were dowsers, but they were dowsers with the actual Y sticks that they used for hundreds of thousands of years, I'm sure. Probably at least 10,000 years they've used dowsing. I don't know what the history on it is, but they have always used dowsing with the tree branch method to find water, because if you couldn't sink a well, you weren't going to be able to grow a garden, and you weren't going to be able to live there very long. Mm. So dowsing has been around as long as humans have, and they learned a long time ago that tree branches with a Y, okay, and the single stick here, all right, just hold on to the sticks and tell it to go look for water and point to it wherever it is. And they would just walk along, and all of a sudden that point would just go down like that. And that's where the water was at. And that's where they would sink their well. So this is how I understand it. But she would get into everything was with the pendulum. So I learned at 8 years old, she wanted me to go find some good tomatoes. And so I went over because I knew how to use it because she had taught me how to use it. It's not that hard. It's pretty simple and straightforward, which is what we're going to talk about tonight so that everybody can do this. And she wanted 4 tomatoes. And so I found 4 out of about 100. They were sitting there in this big bin. And of course, she made sure she was a Scorpio. She went and put her pendulum over all 4 to make sure that, yeah, these were the ones. Okay. And she said, good, you did good. You got it. So that was my introduction to pendulums. So what I want to do here is basically give everybody a general rundown. One book that I really do recommend, this is by, I don't know if you can see it or not.
The Dowsing Mind.
Yeah, by Gary White.
You can see it now. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. It's Amazon. They're Americans. They live in Spain. And they are colleagues of mine because they walk the land. And they've also done an incredible series. Anybody that walks the land, Gary is an expert dowser, and it's a small book, but it is just so good. And it gives everything that you would ever want to know in one book, and it's straightforward. Now, I met Gary and his wife. It's Ellen Aviva. She's a graduate of Princeton University and just a brilliant woman. But Gary was also a professor of music for, I think, Iowa State University. And ever since they got retired from their jobs, they went around the world going to power sites, going to old ancient dolmens and circles and forts and temples, that type of thing. And they wrote books about them, and they're wonderful. If anybody, is walking the land, be sure and check out Gary and his wife's books because they're a series and they're everywhere. Anyway, I met them when they came to Cottonwood, Arizona, and they had just flown in from Spain. And at that time, we were living in Oak Creek, Arizona, right on Oak Creek, which is 8 miles south of Sedona, Arizona, which most people know about, at least in the United States, they do. And my husband had built a hogan, an 8-sided hogan, over a small female vortex, which I found. I could feel it, and I took my pendulum out, and I was doing some work with it both ways, seeing it and also seeing what the pendulum was doing. And so we put the 8-sided Navajo hogan, which he built from scratch, there over it because I wanted a place to train my shamanic students. And I know that when you get close to a vortex, whether it's female, male, or androgynous, which means it's a combination of both, you are going into 4th dimension plus. It's just it. And when you're trying to teach someone how to shift from 3D to 4D, it becomes a lot easier when you can do it with a vortex. And we build it right over it so that energy is coming straight up into the hogan. Okay. It doesn't stay there. It's just moving up through it. But it helps everybody make that jump or make that shift into 4D so that you could go do what you need to do as a shaman. And so when Gary got there, I asked him if he would use his dowsing rods to go find out what else is around there, because I knew something else was around there, and I wasn't getting any answers. I could feel it with my pendulum, could follow it down, but I wasn't getting any feedback as to what is this? Is it a fault line? Is there water under there or what? And I couldn't get answers. And I don't have a clairvoyance that looks into the earth. I don't have that capability, at least this lifetime. And so I was stuck. So I wanted Gary to go out there, and he did. And he went walking around between the greenhouse and the Hogan. It's all very beautiful and green and lush and cottonwood trees. And there was 9 mesquite trees in a circle where we put the Hogan, and a very clear identity on where a vortex is so that you can see it. Just that there's a circle and nothing else is growing in it except maybe some weeds or something like that. But the trees and the shrubs and everything are all around it in a circle. That is a vortex. He went out, and it was a pleasure to watch him work, to see and feel. And then he went inside the Hogan and then came out, and then he was still walking around. He finally came back to me and he says, "You got a fault line there." And I said, "Where is it?" He says, "Where your steps are at." And I said, "Yeah." He says, it goes right past. He says, "That's why you have a vortex there." And she says, "The fault lines make vortexes everywhere." Okay. Because it's Mother Earth's energy in that crack coming straight out. And that was very nice to hear because I could follow it with the pendulum. I didn't know what it really was. So I really appreciated him doing that. You can use pendulums for anything. I said pendulums come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. They're the picture that I've taken here are when we had our store on the internet. We sold these online. And I said, there are also metal ones, wooden ones, and the options are limitless. And as a matter of fact, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you really need a pendulum and you left yours at home, as long as you've got a shoelace and tie a rock on it, not a real heavy rock, but a rock that's got some heft that'll keep that string pulled down, you have a pendulum. So there's just all kinds that are around. And what I would say is pick whatever calls to you. Don't get something because somebody said, "Oh, you need this." I would rather see you go inside and ask yourself, what one do I need? Which one feels right to me? So it's most important to understand there's no right choice. I have different pendulums for different work. If I'm walking the land and I'm going into a new area that I don't know, I've sussed it out. I have the topographical maps. I have permission from landowners if I need to go on somebody's private land and get that okay. But if it's new, I really don't know what's out there. And for all I know, there could be a grumpy discarnate who is there and is unhappy and wants to leave but can't. But if you walk through them or past them, you get cold or you get a tingle or you get a warning or something like that. And I always use a pendulum when I'm in a new area. The first thing that I ask the pendulum, is it all right that we walk here? And pendulums can only do 2 things. They can either say yes or they can say no. They're not talkative. They have 2 words in their language, and that's it.
And a maybe is right. Can you get a maybe sometime or unsure?
We'll get into that.
Mm.
We'll get into that. I don't want to jump ahead, but we will get there. And anyway, I tried to show some different types of pendulums that we worked with. The one on the left is rose quartz. Then there's a 7 chakra yellow calcite point, and it's yellow, and you can see the chakra colors, all 7 there.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. It's fluff, what I call fluff. I like something that is just totally clean and there isn't anything else to mess with it or to draw attention to something else that I don't want because I am so focused on it. But it's up to the person. If they want feathers on it, fine. Put feathers on it. If they want bells, okay. Have at it. It's whatever is right for you. But then the third one is a round one, which is like this one. This is a snowflake obsidian one. The picture, that's a black tourmaline. Then you have a rose quartz. You have a pyramid shaped pendulum. Same with the amethyst, which is your lavender-purple. And then you have a clear quartz. And then you have another circle, a larger carnelian, which is orange colored. And then the one next to it is also a black tourmaline pendant type point. And then you have a clear quartz, and then you have calcite on the other side. It's a rose pink color, and it has the pretty doodads on it, as I call it. So a pouch is a must. You'll lose it. I guarantee you. I've lost so many when I go through bushes and brambles and crap like that. I carry at least 3 or 4 pendulums on me. And the one that I really care the most about, I put it in a pocket of my khaki vest, and it's snapped closed so that I can't lose it. But usually I suggest silk bags because they are a very soft fabric made by an insect. And most of the time, most people's pendulums are polished and they don't have rough edges or rough sides to them. And if they do, they'll tear a silk pouch apart in a hurry, and they would be better off with like a deerskin leather pouch or something like that. Okay. This is just pouches with your chakra type pendulum points. They're really pretty, but they don't do anything extra for the whole thing. And then you get, I like metal. I like a combination of metal and gemstone. The metal is very sensitive to vibrations, and so is rocks. That's all they live on, is the vibrations of Mother Earth. So I like that combination. And there's some people who like just metal ones, and that's fine too. Don't go out and spend thousands of dollars on a gold pendulum. Don't do that. There's most of us that can't afford that anyway. And a lot of your pendulums, your cheaper ones, they're pot metal, which is usually a combination of either brass and copper, or maybe some zinc in it or something like that. They all work. They all work. That's the nice thing. These are all spear-shaped ones. Whoop. And I said each gemstone, especially the quartz family and clear, most of all, will have inclusions in them. Don't think that if the quartz crystal is opaque, that it's not as good as a clear quartz crystal. That's not true at all. That has nothing to do with nothing. So don't worry about that. If it has inclusions in it, that's fine. Most do, and it's not going to change anything anyway. And sometimes I have people who have a pendulum for each chakra color. Okay. And that's what I wanted to show here. Was on the left here with this round pendulum. That's carnelian. It's an orange color. I have people who will only use an orange one on an orange chakra, sacral navel chakra. In the middle is a quartz crystal. There's people who would use that on the crown only, at the top of the head. And the pink one, it would be a combination of root with crown, and it's heart related. But you don't have to do that. I'm just telling you some things that people do, and it's whatever appeals to you. That's great. My favorite one to work in new areas is black tourmaline, like this pendulum here. And you can see it's very clean, very polished. There's no fragmented corners on it. There's no roughness. The polish on it. Make sure that if you're going to pick a stone or anything, make sure that it's really smooth. Otherwise, it's going to start tearing a hole sooner or later. The more you use it on your pouch, if it's a fabric. If not, then if you really don't want to lose it, put it into a deerskin pouch or some thin of leather of some sort. And this is a close-up of it. Again, it's very simple. Not a lot of doodads on them. I've seen them with doodads, and it's, oh my God. Okay, whatever. As long as it works, who the hell cares? And more pouches with a pyramid, and that's a black tourmaline. The weight also has something to do with it, too. This particular point is very lightweight versus the other one, which was a round sphere. There's a little more weight to it. If you're out there working a lot, that matters. And there's a close-up of it. And again, the sides are smooth. Everything's polished. The point really is a point. Don't ever buy a pendulum that has a broken point. That is not going to do you well. And these are 3 more pendulum points. And again, rose quartz, clear quartz, amethyst. I tend toward either tourmaline for my pendulums or quartz, one of the quartz family, because they are pyro and piezoelectric. They're in a very rare field. Okay, so how to use the pendulum. Now that we went through and said there's all kinds, Take your pick. Whatever works for you is good. We're now going to discuss the hand position, the arm position, finger position, plus the operation of a pendulum. Okay. Your hand position is really important. And so most of the time you're outdoors. There's people who do this indoors too. This means that wind can't push your pendulum around when you want it to remain perfectly still. I'm getting that little ahead of myself. The two fingers you want to use is your thumb and forefinger, and you want to use your dominant hand. Okay? Whatever your dominant hand is, that's the one you use. And this one has a pretty long chain on it, okay? So for me, I want mine, I don't know, it's hard to see here. This is the way I would hold it. It's just like this. And when you hold it, don't grab it and then put a lot of pressure on it, because you're actually going to stop the energy that's coming through you, okay? And it's not coming from you. It's coming down through your crown and coming down your arm, and it's going into the pendulum. But if you grab it too tightly, okay, it actually stops the energy from flowing from A to B. Okay. So it's a gentle hold. It's nothing, no big deal. And so I said and this is why the hand position is important. On windy days, turn your back to the wind so your pendulum is not affected by the breeze or the gusts. And I said, hold it near your body. And literally, I hold mine about 6 inches away from my body. If there's a wind going on, I'm putting it right probably in the center of where my thymus is at. Close to the heart, and hold it there. And the other thing, and we'll get to this in just a minute, there's another thing that I need to tell you here. And I said, close your eyes and ground yourself. This is always the first step before utilizing your pendulum. Now, I'm going to tell you an easier way to ground yourself. Okay? The first one that I've given you is the astral body one, the ground technique. Okay? That's the big one. That's the long one. That's the pain in the ass one. This other one is a secondary grounding that I was taught and I've used all my life. And basically what you want to do, and I think I'm getting ahead of myself on this, but that's okay, because grounding is so important. It really is the first thing you do, is you want to close your eyes. And if you're standing, then soften your knees. And what that means is don't lock your joints. If you lock your joints, you're stopping the energy of Mother Earth at your knees, and you're not getting anything, nor can you be grounded. So by softening the knees, that simply means that your joints are pliable and they move. And don't soften them by 6 inches, maybe just an inch or two. Just unlock them. And once you do that, you close your eyes and soften your knees, and put your feet should be apart to where they're in alignment with your hips. You don't spread your legs out a whole ways, and you don't tighten them up and so that you're sitting there going like this because you don't have stability. Those things count. And you'd be surprised how many people do those things. I didn't know it till I started having my students. Anyway, after that, then what you want to do is simply close your eyes and you take a deep breath, 3 deep breaths. This is Ocean Fast Wolf's information. You take a deep breath into the nose and all the way down to your belly, and then hold it for 5 seconds. Just go 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, and then just gently let it come up and out your mouth. And you do this 3 times. Then, in your mind's eye, and your eyes are still closed, in your mind's eye, you're going to see 2 thin silver roots gently winding around each ankle. It's not tight, maybe 3 times. And the tip and the point of the silver root goes down the center of your foot into the ground, and it will not hurt. It will not cause you any discomfort and no pain. And see that root go down about, I would say, 100 feet, or what is that, 30 meters or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Maybe.
about right. Yeah.
Okay. And once you've done that, and again, you're gonna feel, since it's not the major grounding technique where you feel your lower legs feel like lead or your feet feel like lead, with this second type of grounding, which is the one that you'll start using after you got your astral body squared away, you'll use it all the time. And it's not going to feel like you got two blocks on your feet anymore, but you will feel a difference. You'll feel a little more weight, or you'll feel a locking in with the Mother Earth. And once you've done that, then take 3 more deep breaths, same way. Open your eyes, and you're ready to roll. So that's the secondary. We call it the silver tree roots. I don't know if I sent that handout to you or not.
Yeah, you did. I'll add it to Eileen's corner on the website. If it's not there, it might already be there, but
yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure. I have so many things going that it's hard to remember them all. All right. So there's a right way to hold the pendulum. And I was taught this by my mom when we were out walking the land in the Cascades, Oregon mountains. Whenever she wanted to use the pendulum, she'd pull it out. And as long as there wasn't a lot of wind and stuff like that, she would always set her elbow against her waist or her hip. And that's where she would hold the pendulum, because you're putting the weight of the body on that hip. And it's not hard, and you're not sitting there going, oh, like this. It's just simply that it'll happen automatically. And that way, what it does is your hand is going to come down into what we call an L shape. Okay. At the elbow, it creates the L. And at that end is your pendulum, okay, in your hand, okay, with the thumb and the index finger. And that's the way you start. So here's the proper position of your hand and arm. All right. And even if you don't put it against your hip, you're still put your arm against your upper arm, against your torso, and then go ahead and do what we call the L shape. And that's my husband, and he's holding the thing. This is the improper way of holding a pendulum. I can tell you straight up that you're going to get very tired very quickly, because you don't have the muscles to support that for very long. What you don't want to do is cause your pendulum to be jiggling, what we call jiggling. And that could happen if you got your arm straight out, because what you're doing is you're locking your joint to keep your arm straight. And that just causes energy to build up and stop from getting into your hand, or your lower arm and down to the pendulum. So again, locking a joint is not good, but this is why we say this. So don't ever do this. Always go back. This is the right way. And you're going to last a lot longer, and the energy is going to flow very nicely. And your joint is not locked. There it's locked for sure. When you're outdoors and you're just nosing around, walking the land, you can come upon a guardian or a deva. And devas are your local spirit that is responsible for the health of the area and all the plants, the rocks, the trees, the bushes, everything. The deva is like the superintendent of an area. And that spirit is been trained to do this, likes to do it. It's been my experience that I meet all kinds. They're all personalities. They are not, some of them are really grumpy. Some of them are very territorial, and they don't want you in there for whatever their reasons. And this is where, as I said before, if I'm in an area that I've not been in before, which means I haven't met a guardian and I haven't met the deva, I always like to try and find the deva and call him, her, or it to me. And it can be anything. We have the fairy tales, and we have the gnomes, and we have the elves, and we have the fairies that they come in all guises. So I never know who's coming to dinner, quite literally, and if they're in a good humor or not, because a lot of them do not like humans, and they're going through their incarnations also on their path that they've chosen too. And there's a time where humans aren't really appreciated at all because they do nothing but destroy and never give back, and they never allow life to flourish like it did before they arrived here. And they have a long memory. If I get into an area where a Deva is willing to talk to me, because I introduce myself and say why I'm there, and I give cornmeal as an offering and honoring them and who and what they are and what they do for the area. And that way, it's like shaking hands with a stranger. That's our way of doing it. That's our ceremony. And if the Deva is willing to talk to me, then I will sit down on the ground or a rock or a log, whatever I've got. And I don't necessarily need my pendulum at this point, so I'll put that away because I'm telepathically in alignment with that spirit. And I'll pull out my journal and I'll start writing because I'll have questions for him or it about the area. One of the things that I do is, the first thing I do is there any place you do not want me to go? Because there are sacred areas. There's also areas that are dangerous. Or like out in Arizona, one thing that you learn really quickly is if you're out in the early morning after the sun has risen, especially in summer, the snakes get a lot more movement earlier because it's warmer, faster, quicker in the Southwest. And you've got to watch out for them. And we had the green rattler that lived in our area. Not only did we have the bark scorpion that could kill kids in our area and gotten stung by many times, thanks to lachesis, we've survived. But also, we had the green rattler, which is the most poisonous snake in Arizona, who lived around there. We also had bull snakes, and we also had king snakes, which are the antithesis, the rattlesnakes. They were the constrictors can kill a rattlesnake, and a rattlesnake can bite a constrictor, but it doesn't kill them at all. So we luckily had several really nice families of bull snakes around. And they look like a rattler. And unless you look at their head, you can't really tell them apart. Or if you get a chance to see where the rest of their body is, if they have rattles on it or not. And that doesn't always happen, but you can tell by their head. It's oval. It's not diamond shaped, which is the rattler. But there's things that you want to talk about. If I need my pendulum, for whatever reason, I can always put my journal and stuff away. And if I'm sitting on the ground, then what I do is I just cross my legs and sit on the ground, and I rest my elbow on my knee, and I create that L shape with my arm once more. And that pendulum is between my legs and at the front of me, so that if there is wind, I'm blocking it so that I can get a good reading off the pendulum. Otherwise, the wind is going to have a whole lot of fun, and you won't get good information. You're a shield, and it stops the jiggling. And you have to be careful if you're on the ground or where you're sitting. Look around. Is there a stream of army of ants that you've just sat in the middle of their trail where they crisscross? You've got to look at these things. And there's just a lot of things that you need to be aware of out there. Anyway, I said the right way, when you got that L shape, if you're sitting down and you're resting your elbow on the knee, you steady your arm against your body, thereby preventing jiggling of the pendulum that you were holding. All right. The reason why everybody always asks me, why do I use a circle type or a sphere type pendulum? And I just like the perpetual motion machine that the circular energy creates. And it's just personal. It doesn't do anything more or better than anything else. And let's see. Okay, so this is where we start getting into it. When you first get a pendulum, there's a couple of ways that when you hold it up, okay? If you want to ask it, tell me what yes is. And you can either say this out loud, or you can just telepathically talk to it and say, show me what yes is. Okay. And you're holding this and you're waiting, all right, for that pendulum to do something. And usually when you start out doing this, it happens very slowly. But if you watch it, it's going to start. Okay, do you see that? I asked her what yes was. So what she's showing me is what we call a horizontal. All right. Now she's doing this all on her own. My hand isn't moving. Okay, stop, please. Show me what no is. And don't be in a hurry with a new pendulum, because the spirit of it is getting used to your energy and it wants to do something to help you. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. And if it does, that's okay. And you can repeat again and say, show me no.
A bit tricky as well, because you've got your arm up for the sake of the camera, right? It's not.
Yeah, it's hard to hold it, but I wanted to show me no. She's shown me yes twice, and it's like, need no. Okay. There we go. Okay. There's no. No's vertical. Okay. So vertical is this way. All right. And horizontal is this way. So I know yes is this way. I know no is that way. All right. So now I got a cramp in my arm.
Yeah.
You have to be so slow. See, I've never worked with it before.
I hope our audience is enjoying all the effort that's going into you demonstrating this. It is really hard when you're doing it on the camera.
Okay, but I want you to demonstrate for us now. Okay. Ask it to show you yes. Just relax and just don't worry about it. The spirit is working with you, and it also has a personality like this one does. It's like, no, I want to go yes again. That was fun. No, you can't. I need you to show me no. They're all different. And it may take a while, okay? And at first, if you don't succeed, then quit and go away and don't blame anybody, because everybody wants to do it right the first time, and it usually doesn't work at all like that. And you also are working with a spirit. That spirit has its own personality, and this is where, when you start working with the pendulum, you want to have a really good relationship with it. And like this pendulum that I'm working with, clown.
This one is definitely doing a horizontal for yes.
Okay. All right. Then. All right. So you can do one of two things. You can either ask it to please stop, or you can just hold the pendulum for a minute so that it's quiet, and then ask the other question. All right. And if it was yes for horizontal, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it's got to go vertical for no.
Would it go round, like clockwise or anti-clockwise, or does it tend to go vertical?
No, they can't do that. They know better. Nope. No, that one went, okay.
Horizontal. So technically you'd want to see it going vertical for. But that's actually
right.
really good that I'm doing this, because I am the biggest skeptic with these.
Right, you're doing, no,
so it's good that I'm doing, because there's zero placebo here. Okay.
That's okay. You should see me and my students when I first teach them. Oh my God, we're laughing so hard. It's just a lot of giggling and just having a lot of fun. But every spirit and every pendulum is different. They have a personality. Some are really slow. Some are fast. Some are like little hot rods racing around, wanting to do wheelies.
They've definitely got a vertical here, which is great.
That's all right. I said it could take 5 minutes. Now, I'm not joking, because you have to get, it's a lot of pressure on a person, a lot of stress when they know they're being videotaped trying to do this. Okay. I would bet dollars to donuts as soon as you get off and you try this again, and it'll just jump right up and do what you ask of it. Okay. But it's stress. And see, stress can stop pendulum.
I'm actually really surprised. I'm really surprised that it's going vertical. It's actually quite amazing. It's quite cool.
It's trying, yeah. It's for first time. That's good.
Do you know what? I feel really bad because it's actually just been lying in my handbag with my nail clipper and my strong teeth drops and my lip balm and in this mess in my handbag. And I haven't had it in a little pouch. I feel so guilty. This was actually one that was given to me by Yagoda, who's the homeopathist on my team that lives in Bali. And so I've held it a couple of times, played with it a couple of times, and chucked it back in my handbag. So I actually am really surprised that this pendulum's happy to talk to me at all. It's probably really pissed off at me. So I need to go get a nice little silk bag for it and go treat it much nicer from now on.
Good. You have to create a relationship with the spirit because it is a spirit. It has a mind of its own. It has its own experiences. And it has its own knowledge and wisdom. And that's why the one that I use, the black tourmaline, when I'm in a new area, I've had that pendulum for years, and I trust it with my life. If it tells me, no, don't go there, I don't go there. I don't even bother to ask why, because they can't answer why. They can only answer yes or no. And I said, one side note about stones that absorb energy, I said tourmaline or other tourmalines do not absorb energy. And this is really a good thing. Tourmaline will send the energy, if it's not positive energy or good energy, back to the sender. And that's another reason to be using a tourmaline pendulum, especially in a new area. If it's an old one and you know what's around and things like that's a whole different story. But it's something that you really want to think about. Also, most serious pendulum people who are using a stone for a pendulum instead of maybe wood or metal, which is pretty normal, they usually know a little bit more than most people about lapidary or gemstones and things like that. What I suggest, if you want a gemstone, to look at agate or jasper. These are guard dog stones or black tourmaline. And because agate and jasper, and carnelian, by the way, is part of the agate family, the orange sphere one that we showed you here, they can absorb a hit from somebody or something else. And there are things out when you do walk the land that hates humans. This is where it gets really entangled, is they'll send a snake after you. They'll send a bunch of angry bees after you. They'll drop a limb on your head. You've seen it happen a number of times. But this was with people who didn't know ceremony to give a gift of cornmeal, to say, my name is, and I would like permission to be here with you and to walk the land. Can I? And it's all done telepathically, or you can say it out loud too. It's up to you. But they hear real well on telepathy. And telepathy is a combination of mind and emotions. It's not just mental. You're going to get emotions with it too. And that's something you probably aren't ready. It's surprising at first when it happens, because you get the whole thing. And it's almost, I don't know, I just feel like it's a complete compression of their thought and emotion together, and you just feel pasted with it from your feet to your head. It's not uncomfortable or anything, but it's surprising if you're not used to it. Okay, this is important. If you see your sphere, if you see your pendulum, which is a gem, okay, or perhaps you have glass, people like colored glass. If you see anything that is a color and it's losing its color or it's leaching out, that means that something or someone is draining it or has hit it and it's absorbed the hit for you. And that there's a lot of reasons for that I'm not going to get into tonight, because that goes into walking the land. And I said that the best thing to do on that, if you take a hit, you're usually not even aware of it at first. You might see it a week or so later when you realize your bright red agate is looking pink. That's what happens. Then you know it took a hit. I have seen crystals crack when they've taken a hit from somebody, literally just explode.
Wow.
The crystal spirit gave its life for you. And I've seen that with agate and with jasper. And they not only leach out in color, but they can crack and break in half too. So just be aware of things like that. And I said you should always put your pendulum, not the chain, or as little of the chain as possible, into a saltwater bath upon your returning home. Ocean of Fast Wolf always used salt water, and like a teaspoon of salt water in a 8-ounce glass of water or whatever. You can put it in a little bowl, doesn't matter. If you're worried about the chain at all, because pot metal and salt don't necessarily get along together, you can just take it like a little napkin and dip it in salt water and just wipe off the stone itself rather than the metal too. And that will suffice, because salt takes positive ions away from the human body, from the pendulum. Positive ions are not good. They are dust bunnies. They clog up your chakras. They clog everything up. And they're called dust bunnies for a reason. It's like go around with a little duster dusting them off because everything looks dirty. They make things look dirty. And this is what clogs up the chakra. And it can also, if you're not cleaning off your pendulum after using it every time, then it's going to start collecting the dust bunnies, the positive ions, and it will not be able to work fully 100% for you. So you always clean off your equipment, your little friend, whatever you want to call it, after you're done. And that's how you care for it. I wanted to read a couple of things from Gary's book here. He's got some really great questions. This is a wonderful little workbook. It says, once you are clear about yes and no movements, he says, of your pendulum, you can ask a series of questions or make a series of statements. For example, my name is, and then you say your name, and the pendulum's either going to say yes or no. If it says no and it is your name, you two aren't working well together. You've got to get some communication energy lines straightened out, which happens. It happens all the time. Or it says, my name is, and you give a fictitious name, then it should say no. And it says, it's raining outside my window. And you look and it's not. You expect a no out of it. Then you say, I have a pet dog named Pooch. Again, no. But if I said I have a pet dog named Gracie, my pendulum better be saying yes. Here's some more. My hair is red. And mine's gray. Here's a nice dark brown or black, Genia. Okay, I live in New York City. No, I live in Bassett, Virginia. I drive a Toyota car. Yes. I am an elementary school teacher. No. Right. And he says here, make up other yes or no questions or statements and observe the answers provided by the pendulum. He says, keep practicing until you get the correct answers, making sure you go to your dowsing mind each time you ask. His dowsing mind, he has a certain way of doing it, which I think a lot of people will find interesting. It works for him. So that's what he's talking about. My dowsing mind is getting grounded. Okay, here's another one. This is just before he's going out to douse or for you to work with the pendulum. He says, remember, ask permission. Am I ready to do this? That's a good question to ask, because you may feel like you're in a really good space and you're really not, but you don't realize the difference, but the pendulum does. If it says no, you don't do it. Okay, he says, okay. So in his case, he has the rods, he has little rods, the dowsing rods that he uses, and he's mentally asking them to search a position. And then he says, state what you are looking for. For example, show me the energy line, or show me the fault line, or show me where the underground water is at. Those are all questions that a dowsing rod could give, but a pendulum couldn't. You'd have to ask them in a different way. All right, some other of his questions, which are very good. He says, is this product good for me today? Yes or no? Is this product bad for me today? My mother used to do this all the time. She'd be muttering over her pendulum saying, is this a good cucumber? If it said no, she'd bypass and go ask the next one. And then another question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is it for me today? And then he has in parentheses, countdown from 10 to 1, testing with each number. Okay. And he has another question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it for me today? That's probably a more important question to ask. Do I want to get out of bed or not? And again, he says, count down from 10 to 1, testing with each number. And then this is one my mom used to use because she was into vitamins and minerals when they first came out. And we started taking vitamins and minerals when we were probably about 10 or 11 years old. He says, are there side effects of this supplement that are not in, and he gives his wife's name, best interest? Okay, but you can ask that for yourself. Is this supplement that you're holding, or it's by itself on the surface and you put the pendulum over it, you would ask that question. Okay, this is a good one. This is something that I use with my pendulum. It's a dowsing for the depth of water. And he said, is the water at 10 feet in depth? Is the water at 20 feet of depth? Is the water between 50 and 100 feet of depth? Is the water between...
Very similar to kinesiology, hey? I guess it uses the same principles, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's more than one way to get answers, for sure. But his book is really good, and he has lots of different and interesting things. But remember, he douses, he doesn't use a pendulum. So when you're dowsing, you can sometimes ask different questions a little better or more distinctly than you can when it's a pendulum. So
fascinating.
Now, I said sometimes when you ask a question, it won't move. It just sits there. I said, in this case, either your question is too broad, too general, and you need to rephrase it. And most of the time, this is what it is. You have to learn how to talk with and to your spirit, or how the spirit is going to receive the question that you're asking. And I said, focus it more closely on what it is you want to know. Then it will answer it. If not, then you're not to know the answer. I've had that happen. No matter how I ask the question, it just sits there. And it's, okay, Eileen, when are you going to get it? It's not for you to know. It's a need to know basis only, but they can't tell you that.
I was just laughing when you said Eileen, because I think with your pendulum, if you ask it about your name, I think it would be so confused because you've got so many. I think your pendulum would just stand still. I don't even know how to answer this question. Pooping.
No, it would probably answer yes to each one, but you'd have to ask them separately.
Yeah.
Is my name Lizzie McKenna? Is my name Iju Devasha? Is my name Tashunka Manitou? So it would know the difference, but you wouldn't ask all of them all at once. See, that's the thing. That's the key. One thing at a time. It's baby steps. And I said, when you first buy your pendulum, if a gemstone, I always suggest that you put it, but not the chain, or as little as possible, into a salt bath for 24 hours. Don't be surprised if the water becomes cloudy or murky looking or semi-opaque because of the negative or the positive ions that are contained, the negative ions are contained in the salt. And what they're doing is it's pulling the positive ions that have collected over time around that pendulum, and it's sending it into the water, and the water will take care of it. But your pendulum will come out clean. And then I said, after that, find a comfortable place to stand or sit. Make sure there's no distractions to your focus on the pendulum. No music, no one talking. The cell phone is shut off. No animal, dog or cat or bird around. In other words, it has to be quiet and you are alone. And that's especially important when you first do it, because you don't have any confidence built up yet and you don't know your spirit that well, and that spirit doesn't know you that well. Although I suspect it knows a lot more than you do on the invisible side, which is in your favor. So that's a good thing. So we said, tell me yes, blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's either going to move vertically or horizontally, and it's either going to be a yes or no. And the second way to do it is a circular clockwise or a counter or an anti-clockwise for yes and no. Just depends. And whatever it is, be sure and write this stuff down, okay? You will forget. You will forget which way is yes and no. I have a card on each one of mine. And when I pick it up to use it, I'm reading the card because I don't remember. It's so easy to forget it. Okay. So I said, the answer depends on what you want to know. I said, this is a personal question. Am I going to get that job? And if it says no, you'll ask, is this a good time to be looking for a job? And it'll say no. But now, because you knew how to ask the question, you found out more of what you needed to know to finish the sentence, if you will. Or should I leave my old job and try to find another one? And I said, if it just sits there and doesn't move, it means it won't answer your question, move on. And instead of asking the question, should I leave my old job and try to find another one, and it won't say anything, just say, is this the right time to be looking for a job? And you have to move these things around in your head and ask different ways to get that yes or no, instead of it just hanging there going, eh. Okay, and I said, when I'm walking the land, I would ask, is there an energy line within 100 feet of where I'm standing? And I said, if it's yes, then I would ask, is it north of me? No. Is it east of me? No. Is it south of me? Yes. And then I go, okay, is it 100 feet from where I'm standing? No. Is it closer than that? Yes. So I said, okay, so what I do is then, so long as it isn't windy, I'll plant my elbow into my hip and I'll hold the pendulum in that L shape out in front of me. I'll telepathically tell it to start moving when I walk through the energy stream. Okay? Because there's energy coming up from the ground, from that water that I can't see. And it will, and that's where I'll stop. It'll make a movement, and it'll usually be a yes. And if it says no, then there's something else there that it's picking up on, and I'm going, okay, what do we got here? And that's when I get my journal out and I start looking north, south, east, west, and the minor directions, and I'm drawing pictures because it's picking up on something else, and I don't know what it is. So you can really get into a Gordian knot on this stuff. And I said, the notations in the journal is where I eventually did intersect where the water was at. And also I could feel the energy there as well. So when you hold a pendulum, there's different ways people hold them. And these are 3 of the methods. And you can see that you have a stone, you have a metal pendulum, and you have a wooden pendulum. And you can use any of the 3 that suits you. Just as long as you use your thumb and index finger, that's fine. How you hold it is entirely up to you, whatever's comfortable. Okay, that's it. Do you have questions, Eugenia?
Oh, that was beautiful, Eileen. Thank you so much. I have a bit more confidence to start playing around with this more. But I guess the main question would be just how you feel the homeopaths listening can incorporate this into their clinical practice.
I was going to jump on that next. So thank you. Reading my mind, are you? Okay.
I'm way too scared to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back in what I said earlier, that if a well-chosen remedy does not work, or it works too short of a time and it should be doing more, or it's not addressing all of the symptoms, that's well chosen. So it should be dealing with all of the symptoms. They aren't all going to get better all at the same time, but you're going to see some movement on it that tells you, yeah, you're on the right trail. You're on the right path. We're going the right way. But then all of a sudden it stops maybe 2 weeks into it, and say you gave them a 200C, and it's not an acute case, because an acute case of 200C, you could be giving it every 15 minutes so the person doesn't die. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody that has a chronic long-term disease, okay? And they're trying to climb out from under the rock with it. And if you gave them a well-chosen remedy at the correct potency that you know from your experience should be working, and all of a sudden it stops, and you're going, what happened? The first thing you want to do, the homeopath wants to do a couple of things. A, get a pendulum. B, learn how to use it. C, try this on your family, your dog, your cat, or horse or whoever to start building up some confidence before you do it on one of your patients who's going to probably look at you weird unless they are into this type of thing too. And then they're wanting to go to people like you. Okay. You want to, first of all, find out where the symptoms were located. Okay. What chakras, front or back, is being jammed up, for lack of a better word. Okay. And if it's the same as what the homeopath was giving that remedy for those symptoms in that system, then what she or he should do is, since you know it was, let's say, the digestive system, you know it's the solar plexus, all right? You're going to go take your pendulum, and the questions that I would ask, the first thing I would ask is the front chakra clean? Now, clean means, in my experience, that there is no etheric dross in the dust bunnies, the positive ions, okay, that are caught up in the spinning of the constant tornado-like spinning of that chakra over time has gotten a lot of etheric dross in it. That's one way to slow down the frequency of that chakra to keep that system healthy. And this usually happens over time, and it happens to older people, not younger people. But there's a lot of roads on this one. The other road is that if that person came into this incarnation to work on their solar plexus, either front or back or both, because let's say that your solar plexus is where you begin to become an individual, and you begin to think for yourself and have confidence in yourself. And you don't necessarily listen to what other people tell you to do, but rather it's run through your own age and maturity, and you think about it or you feel about it, and then you make a decision on it. That's a solar plexus way of working and learning to be an individual, rather than somebody saying, you need to do this, which may be the antithesis of what this person needs. All right. So it's a learning thing. But when you get somebody that has an incarnation that is trying to learn to be an individual, and they're still tied to mother's apron strings, that's not being an individual. That's being a mommy's boy, for lack of better words, okay? Put some labels on it to make it obvious here. And as long as you maintain the hanging on or listening to what mom says and doing what mom says and always believing that mom knows what's best for you, that chakra isn't going to be able to be clean, because it's going against the plan that this soul put into being in this incarnation, to learn to break that tie and become his own self, or to learn, explore who he is.
So would you hold that chakra over your actual client, or could you have, say, like a infographic of the different chakras, maybe when the client's not in the room, and you can ask your pendulum that question, is this the chakra that there's a problem with, or is this the chakra that there's a problem with?
It would depend. It would depend upon the client. If I know the client is a very religious person, I'm not pulling out my pendulum. Okay? There's no way in hell. No. Yeah, you go to another room, and I think I gave you a form to use. I sent it as a handout. There is a form on there, and it has all the chakras, and it has all the colors, and you can go ahead and douse on that particular chakra, okay? You can say in your mind, is the solar plexus chakra clogged up? Yes or no? Okay. And it's going to give you an answer. And if it says yes, then what I would do is I would want to have it. I wouldn't necessarily use the form at that point. I would just, use a desk or use a table, and I would hold the pendulum out there. And what I would tell it is, show me how damaged that chakra is with that etheric draw. So show me the speed of it. Okay. Now, I can tell you that I have had my pendulum go like this. Okay.
Mm.
And it's a healthy chakra. And then I can tell you that if it's just going around like this and that's it,
Mm.
that's a very weak response because a healthy chakra is wailing away.
Mm.
It really is. And so then what you do is once you know that the chakra has been in some way slowed down from what it needs to be because it's clogged with this debris,
Mm.
but you're also seeing it play out with that young man who has the digestive problems, okay, who is still tied to mother's apron strings, and he hasn't broken free yet of that case, okay, of becoming an individual.
Mm.
And so you want to then look at that and you understand that you're up against something that he may not have that it didn't enter the client's mind that any of this could be like this.
Mm.
And so then what you need to do is probably go in and do one of two things. They don't need to know that the homeopath went and did this, okay? But it's giving us extra information that we need to maybe make a breakthrough on that client.
Mm.
And so you would go in and ask about this. Now, different homeopaths take different ways. Yeah, there's the form.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how to go.
Yeah,
So this is
that's great.
one of the handouts that's going to be on Eileen's Corner on my website. So eugenikruger.com/Eileen. But also make sure that you go, like Eileen's got a lovely IT person that's busy helping her get her IT stuff set up. So we're just kind of putting a little holding space on my website and my YouTube channel. But she has her own YouTube channel, and there's the walkingtheland.net website where you can also get all of these handouts. So you've got them in two different places. So they're nice and easy to find. But this was the kind of sheet that you were talking about, hey?
And this is what we use when we do somebody, and we do them front and back. But with this, let's go on with the story that we're creating here as to why homeopaths should do this. If the homeopath knows this, there's several things that you might want to do. And the story I'm telling you is actually true. I had a client many years ago fly in from London, England, and this was a medical astrology client who flew in. And when he walked in, he looked like death warmed over. His face was so pasty and white. He was a very tall, good-looking young man, very rich. He could fly over and do that type of thing. And I lived in Ohio at that time. And I sat down and I said, how can I help you? And he kept saying that his mom meant so much to him and that his father had died, but he was really glad that his mother was around. And he says, I just feel so tired all the time. Going, okay. I said, because I had quite a form that they had to fill out. And part of the form had to do with nutrition, and another part of the form had to do with what are you eating or drinking lately every day? What are your habits, your eating habits? And we talked a long time about his mom and how much he loved her and how much he adored her. And he just couldn't see life without her. And I could see the struggle in him he was probably around 27, 28 years old. He was really out of the cradle. And it was like, okay. And I'm sitting there listening, thinking, okay, are we going to go into the milk remedies or what? Because it is a justified thing to think about is what about the milk remedies? Maybe that's something that he needs. And at the same time that I was thinking that, I happened to turn it over. It's a 10-page thing that they fill out. And I was back in the nutrition. I was looking through stuff and under what did you drink? Okay. And he said milk. And I'm thinking, he's 28 years old and he's drinking milk. And it didn't square with me, okay, as a homeopath. And so I said, once he got done telling me about that, I was listening and I was making notes. I said, you drink milk? And he says, yes. He says, I love milk. I said, okay. I said, how much of this are you drinking a day? He was drinking six glasses of milk, and we're talking 8-ounce glasses. Okay. Honest to God, this is the truth. I had a hard time keeping my face where it needed to be rather than going, oh my God, you're choking. No, you can't do that. And I said, how long have you been drinking this much milk? He says, oh, I've loved it all my life. And I looked at him and I said, is there anything else you'd like to drink? No. I said, was there anything you ever thought you might like to drink? Oh, he says, possibly, but he says, I really love milk. And I almost wanted to say to him, but your skin looks like milk. It is so pasty. I've never seen anybody like that in my life since then. And I said, okay. I said, will you do me? I said, I think I know how to help you. And he says, really? Because he's so tired all the time. And he's gone through all the endocrine tests. His thyroid is fine. His adrenals are fine. His testosterone is in normal levels. And he's drinking 6 8-ounce glasses of milk a day. And he's tied to his mom. And his solar plexus. He's got such terrible digestion. But it was because of that. And I thought, okay, there's a couple of ways I can do this. Well, and I said, all right. I said, what if I told you to stop drinking milk for 2 weeks? And he looked at me and he says, but why would I do that? I said, to humor me. And he looked at me and he laughed. He says, he says, really? I said, yeah. I said, you find something else to drink. I said, it doesn't have to be liquor or anything like that, but it perhaps, I said, over here in the United States, we have V8 juice. I said, that's GMO free, that's organic. It's about 8 different vegetables that are made into a juice. And he says, we don't have that in England. I said, okay. I said, whatever juice. I said, what do you eat for dinner and lunch? And he said, well, I always have a glass of milk or 2 with my whatever I eat. I said, are there certain vegetables you like? And he says, I like tomatoes. Okay. Have you ever had any tomato juice? He says, no. It's almost painful for him to say these things. And I said, look, I said, I believe all of your stomach pain, because he would have stomach pain, cramping. And it would always coincide with when he was drinking his milk. And I said, look, I said, you've spent a lot of money flying from London over to Ohio to talk to me. I said, there's everything in your chart. I said, medically, I said, you have a moon with a lot of hard aspects to it. I said, that's mom. And I said, the hard aspects means that it's hard for you to start living your own life. And he looked at me and he said, I've thought about getting my own flat. I said, really? Yeah. But just thinking about it. Okay. Been thinking about it.
Mm.
I said that would probably be a pretty good move. But then I was thinking, well, you can always buy a couple of gallons of milk and have it in your refrigerator, and you're still going to be drinking that damn stuff and killing yourself with it. And I said, just do me a favor. I said, why don't you have either cold water or drink your tea? He didn't like tea. He was in England. He didn't like tea. He didn't like coffee either. Very basically, he went home. He drank the tomato juice, and his entire face and the color and everything changed. So that's why you can use the energy and the pendulum to help you to verify, and it might give you more ways to talk to somebody that you wouldn't ordinarily have taken those tacks at all. So that's it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can I just say that, as you say, our listeners don't know because we've just split up this episode, but it's 9:30 at night your time. You've been lecturing for 3.5 hours straight with only a 3-minute pee break when the two of us had to run out and quickly had a pee break in between. But at 77 years old, that you can lecture for 3.5 hours straight, at 9 up till 9:30 at night completely blows my mind. I do not know another person on this planet like you. So can I just firstly acknowledge how amazing you are?
Look, if you're grounded, you can do that because the Mother Earth will give you the energy when you need it. No matter what your age is, that doesn't matter. But if you need that, if it's important, if it's from the heart and you're really care about what you're doing or saying or teaching, that's the Mother Earth just boom.
Yeah.
I can feel it. I can feel it running through my body. I can feel it coming up my legs. But that's what it is. But that's grounding. You can be the same way. My grandmother lived to be 100. Hell, I'm only 77. I got a long way to go.
Spring chicken.
I'm going to be around to bother a whole lot of people for a lot longer than they hope that I don't stay here, but I got news for them.
I love
I'm going to change the world. But that's how you use these things to help. Okay. And I was giving you a broader view of it with this one.
Thank you so much, Eileen. I love you too. I really appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Okay.